Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined once again by, he's back once again. It's Ben Schneider, of course, the channel's opinionist, and of course, my colleague on Grid Network as well. And you can also read his work on lastcar.info. Of course, that's the outlet man by Brock Beard. Before we get into this, a message to the audience. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. And it certainly will help out this channel much more. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We are very close in that 100, less than 100 subscribers to go until we get to 1,000. So if you can like this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel, it would be much appreciated. All right. Well, the reason why we have Ben on here tonight, and we had him on last week to talk about a bunch of other things, is that there was some news last week that pertains to game shows. Of course, the biggest one is Wheel of Fortune. Of course, a few weeks ago, if you remember, Pat Sajak announced that he would be retiring as host of Wheel of Fortune after 41 seasons, at the helm. Of course, Wheel of Fortune's been on. After its 41st season, Pat Sajak will not be the host anymore. We'll get to his replacement in a minute. But Ben, I know Pat has said in the past that, it's coming up. I don't have, my best years are behind me. I maybe only have 3 or more years left. And, I know Pat's in his late 70s, if I'm not mistaken, but what was your reaction to the news that Pat Sajak will be not the host of Wheel of Fortune after season 41?
Yeah, I think he's 76, if I recall correctly. So I think he had a couple of years left in him if he wanted it. But after 41 seasons, I mean, literally more than half his life doing this show, I can understand where he might consider it time to step away. A little surprised that it came this quickly after the whole Jeopardy Mike Richards debacle. I would have thought Sony would have shoved up as much money as they needed to keep both him and Vanna White to prevent something like that from happening. But they still did because of how quickly they found their replacement here. And I guess we'll get into that here in just a moment. But yeah, I mean, what an incredible career, what an incredible run. There's really not much more you can say. And I can't think of somebody that's, been the face of one show for as long as he has. Even guys like Bob Barker doing The Price is Right, he made it 35 years. Unfortunately, we lost Alex Trebek, to pancreatic cancer a little bit sooner than I think he would have liked to continue hosting Jeopardy for a few more years. But 41 years in television game shows is unmatched, and it's been an incredible run for a guy who was a relatively unknown weatherman coming in to replace a game show legend in Chuck Woolery, and then the show getting its current start in syndication. I think even if you go back to all versions of Wheel of Fortune, it's even been a little bit longer that Pat Sajak's been hosting the show. I think 81 was when he took over for Chuck Woolery. So just an incredible career, an incredible run. But as they say, all good things must come to an end.
And of course, he'll stay on as a consultant for the next few years. And
right.
Or of course, he's going to keep himself pretty busy. I know he is also active in the state that I live in, up at Hillsdale College, where he serves as a board of trustees. Serves as one of the board of trustees for that college. I think he is the head chairperson of that board. So good stuff for him. But as you've said, we have found a replacement, and it's a very familiar face to anyone that has watched any bit of television, reality television, for the last 20 plus years. Of course, I'm talking about Ryan Seacrest, of course, the current host of American Idol. And of course, he also hosts American Top 40. He pretty much has done just about everything that you can imagine in his career. But this is a different, how this kind of happened is very different to how, the finding the host of Jeopardy. This was a pretty good, it only took 2 weeks to find his replacement. Obviously, Vanna White will still stay on as well. So that'll be interesting to see once season 42 begins. Of course, we celebrate Pat's last season with season 41. But your thoughts on Seacrest getting the job?
Well, he's certainly an old reliable choice here, and I say old reliable. I think it's easy to forget he's only 48. With how long he's been in television, with how long he's been doing American Idol. Sony, I think, picked somebody who, and I don't think I'm exaggerating here when I say this, Seacrest might have 30 years in him hosting this show if all goes according to plan. I certainly wouldn't say that that's an expectation out of him right out of the gate, but I think if he's committed to it long enough, if he does it well enough, and if he's popular enough, and I think all those are certainly reasonable expectations and possibilities, I think that he certainly has a shot to have that show in hand for him as long as maybe not quite as long as Pat Sajak in 41 years, but certainly for a long time to come. I know some people threw Tom Bergeron's name out there. Of course, Bergeron has plenty of hosting experience with Dancing with the Stars and hosted Hollywood Squares for a brief revival there. But I think he mentioned in an Instagram comment actually that it was a little bit past his time to take on a role like that. And I think Sony wanted somebody who, they knew could stay on for as long as they need here because, Bergeron, I believe, is 68. So, again, I don't think that he would just be a 1 to 3 year kind of deal, but I can't imagine he'd have much more than 10 or 15 years in him hosting the show. So, I think with Ryan Seacrest, you get somebody who's obviously a fantastic television host who I think is going to fit right into Wheel of Fortune and hopefully keep the show running for many, many more years to come.
Yeah. And just the way, I mean, it only took just a short amount of time and they've already found the next host. And obviously that wasn't the case, when, obviously different circumstances with Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. And now they're obviously, two different entities, even though they're, part of the same company. Obviously when Harry Friedman was executive producer for both shows, and obviously that kind of split when he retired. But overall, just kind of talk about the comparisons between those two shows. And, I think well done by Sony.
Yeah, well, they call them the Sony Soulmates, I think. They're paired in the same time slot in most markets across the country. But you're right, the two hosting searches really couldn't be that much different with how they turned out. It only took a couple of weeks, and I think it even took a little bit less than that. There were certainly Seacrest rumors that Seacrest was taking the wheel, so to speak, even a couple of days before he was announced. So they I think, had this in plan very quickly. I think they certainly learned their lesson. Again, I hate to sound morbid. I know it sounds awful, but it's a miracle Alex Trebek lasted as long as he did, because stage 4 pancreatic cancer at his age is certainly no joke. And he had a good year and a half left in him to continue hosting the show. But I mean, the minute he announced that he was ill, somebody at Sony would have had to think, okay, we have to have a contingency plan in place to have a host come in sooner rather than later, and certainly a little bit sooner than we were hoping or expecting. And obviously, I don't think they had that. Maybe Mike Richards had this grand scheme in the back of his mind to try to assume his way to the hosting position, which he did for 5 episodes. And then, of course, we all know what happened after that. But I think they certainly wanted to avoid a similar situation like that happening this time. And as I mentioned, you're not going to get a more reliable host in many respects than you're getting here with Ryan Seacrest, and somebody that has a little bit of game show experience himself. You might remember the 1,000,000-second quiz, that 10 or 12 night event, whatever it was, in September of 2013, coming up on the 10-year anniversary of that. Obviously, years and years of hosting American Idol as well. And, when you think about it, this man's now replaced Regis Philbin over at Live. He's replaced Dick Clark on New Year's Eve, rocking New Year's Eve, and now he's replacing Pat Sajak. So he's really taken the roles from some television icons and legends here already in his young career. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does, but I have no doubt that he'll fit right in at the Wheel of Fortune family.
He's only 48 years old, so it'll be there. Also, let's talk about this for a second. This kind of flat over, but I know watching CBS Mornings, they kind of talked about it, but The Price is Right's going to have a new set next year.
Right.
Leaving their set that they've always been in, the Bob Barker Studios at Television City in Hollywood, after 51 seasons. Of course, obviously The Price is Right is iconic to everybody. Watching it, I was actually just watching it this morning here at home. But yeah, it's going to be a little different. The set's not going to change, but obviously, leaving Studio 33, which of course was the same studio that the Carol Burnett show was also taped out of. It's an iconic set. Anything in Television City is always, it's going to be good, but obviously they're moving to a new studio. But yeah, it's just obviously the show will go on. Drew Carey will still be the host for, I don't know how long. I mean, he's been at it, I think, but like 15. I think this is his 15th, 16th year of hosting.
So Casey, you want to feel old here?
Yeah.
In a year and a half, Drew Carey will have hosted The Price is Right for half as long as Bob Barker did.
Wow.
He just finished his 16th season, and Bob Barker hosted for 35 years. So
Jeez.
it's been a long time for Drew Carey. And again, I know there was a little bit of controversy with that whole search when Bob Barker retired and everything, but funnily enough, Mike Richards actually threw his hat in the ring and auditioned for that role. But I think Drew Carey has fit right in over The Price is Right as well, and they've certainly got a good thing going, and it'll be interesting to see them in their new home. It's a little bit bittersweet to see that studio go, but like we said with Pat Sajak, change. The only constant in life is change. All good things must come to an end. So it's a new era for The Price is Right. We'll see how that goes, and I believe as well, full audience back again for the first time, I guess, since March of 2020. So that'll be great to see too.
Yeah, it'll be good to see that place packed again. And it's all. I mean, The Price is Right. It's like, hey, let's get a new car, and then just some iconic games. Plinko is my favorite, so there we go. I didn't know if you were going to ask that, but I just decided to put that out there. So yeah.
I've got the Plinko board game myself, actually. Right, I don't know if you would call it a board game, but there's Plinko merchandise and the home game for that individual pricing game, let alone the entire show. So certainly a lot of iconic stuff on the Price is Right set, no doubt.
Plinko, and I mean, is there like any other? What would you think? Any other iconic games besides that one? I mean,
I'd say after Plinko, it's probably Cliffhangers.
Yeah, probably. I mean, everyone loves Yodely Guy. I mean, remember when they put a mask on him and stuff and all that? That was fun. So
yeah, and then the Showcase Showdown Wheel, of course, another iconic part of the show. So
the showcase itself. So
right.
And then of course getting called down and. And another, obviously, just as important as the host is the announcer, and, someone talking about, someone that's been around for a little bit, George has kind of filled that role since the great Witch Fields went to go, do the weather awkwardly enough. So I think he hosts his own podcast, I think now, but yeah, George is, talk about that. And another one, George Gray, of course, if you remember, I know you would remember this, but, obviously his days hosting the syndicated Weakest Link and all that. And
right.
But yeah, just just another one of those and the models have been there for probably forever. Of course, now they have both women, both men and women models. So yeah, just an iconic show.
I hate that everything's coming back to Mike Richards here, but I remember Mike Richards hosting those webisodes back in the day, with going through the search for the first male model. I believe his name was Rob. I think he's gone on to do some acting in the world of soaps and stuff like that. So he's formed a nice career for himself. But I remember when they had the first male model and did that whole search. Again, it's been interesting to see how the show's evolved over the last several years here. Certainly Drew Carey era.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get off game shows for a second. There's let's talk about social media. There's one thing I do want to discuss with you. I was wondering if this topic was going to get introduced, but let's talk about Twitter. There's some interesting things that happened on Twitter this weekend. Well, anything on that site is always interesting, but this rate stuff, and then of course if you'd see what they're going to do to Twitter Blue, or not Twitter Blue, TweetDeck, and all that. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I've never used TweetDeck, so I will certainly defer to you on that one. I think
I'm not really using it either, but it's just I know people do like it, but I mean, obviously, you could still fire off tweets doing that when Twitter decided to, not pay its things on there and stuff. I was actually having a discussion with somebody on this, but I think a lot of people really now understand, especially the people higher up at Twitter, actually how important they actually are to society.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I always think to myself, what would FDR's Twitter feed have looked like if we had that back in the day? Would he have done the fireside chats, or would he have just sent out tweets? What would Lincoln's Twitter feed have looked like? Washington's, you can go back in history and in time. It would be interesting to consider. But it really has changed our world, and I know not everybody. Not the entire U.S. or world population is on Twitter, but for those that are, I can tell you speaking from my experience firsthand, it's where I get the majority of my news. I go to the trending tab and I see what people are talking about, and you get live reactions from journalists and legitimate news outlets and common folks like you and me alike. And it's a very interesting platform. I think I have a very love-hate relationship with it. I think there's no doubt it's been used for a lot of good and a lot of positive things over the years, but there's also a heck of a lot of negativity on the site and a lot of toxicity all throughout as well. And I think, unfortunately, that's only increased since Elon Musk took the site or the app, whatever you want to call it, over. And you know, I will admit firsthand, I've never spent $44 billion on a social media site, so I don't know all the ins and outs of what he's going through right now. Maybe he had a legitimate reason for trying to limit, you know, the rates or whatever, but you know, it's very unfortunate the timing of it with the NASCAR weekend at Chicago and everybody trying to follow the Xfinity race. So I gotta say, I've very rarely been more frustrated trying to use Twitter than I was this weekend. I'm curious to hear what your experience is with it as well. But I got to tell you, I found a way around it at first because if the feed wasn't refreshing on my app on my phone, and so I went to my desktop version and got things to work there, and then that crashed as well. I guess maybe he's trying to force everybody and twist their arm into paying for Twitter Blue. Personally, I'd rather gas be $11 a month than pay $11 a month for $11 a gallon, I should say, than pay $11 a month for the ability to have extra features on Twitter. I'm never going to bite the bullet on that one, even though I know a lot of people have. But you know, it's very, very frustrating that those that haven't, that want to continue to use Twitter as they always have, it seems like we're kind of being forced out of that at this point.
Well, which also led to something more interesting, because if you saw what Instagram put on Twitter on Saturday, I don't know if you saw this, but they're teasing their own version of Twitter called Threads. So that should be interesting.
It certainly should. I apologize if you can hear my roommate's dog in the background there, but
Right.
yeah, I got to tell you, I know we were talking about this before the Encore show as well. You know, kind of being frustrated at these social media sites copying each other. You know, and I don't think it's going to kill Twitter entirely. I think if anybody's going to kill Twitter, it's going to be Elon Musk at this point. But I don't think Instagram Stories killed Snapchat. I don't think YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels have killed TikTok. I don't think YouTube going to handles has killed any social media sites. So all these sites trying to imitate one another and take the best of both worlds here and try to implement them onto their own sites. We'll see how it goes with Instagram. I've got to say the notes feature hasn't been very widely adopted, at least from my experience from the mutuals that I have that I'm following. There's only like 2 or 3 people that keep up to date with the notes. So maybe it's going to go the way of Twitter Fleets. Do you remember Twitter Fleets when Twitter tried to institute stories there? So yeah, I mean, we'll see if this lasts. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But Instagram, I think, has a bit of a good track record with introducing new features. So we'll see. Maybe it'll take off.
It'll be interesting to see what happens here. But I think we all realized, how important Twitter actually is. I know that they were, funny enough, it happens on July 1st. Which, for many people that don't know, July 1st is actually when the new fiscal year begins for, a lot of companies, a lot of schools, a lot of different things. So, trying to maybe work out a new contract to get a new server. I know if you followed all this, of course, maybe not paying Google or something like that, but it should be all interesting to really see how this all goes. Maybe we'll all go to Blue Sky or something. I know that Elon made the comment of, you all need to go outside, and then Jack Dorsey put on there, it's like, hey, it's grass, go do that. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I just tweeted a picture of a patch of grass. Jack Dorsey's just laughing to the bank, I guess, with the Twitter sale. Although I don't know, I'm sure he didn't get all $44 billion himself, but
I think he did.
I think he's just kind of like, it's not my problem at this point. You guys figure it out for yourselves here. And
yeah.
I don't know. I know some people are mad at him that he ever sold out to Elon Musk and that group, but the amount of stress he must have been under the last several years, especially with the Trump administration, the election, and trying to police some of the stuff going on the site. I can't say I blame him for wanting to get out of there.
Yeah. All right. I did watch MLS this weekend. The Union did. How about those Union?
Yeah, I got to tell you, man, it hurts not having Andre Blake right now. I know he's off with Jamaica in the Gold Cup for CONCACAF. Yeah. I know Thiago Almada is a World Cup winner with Argentina. But that free kick that he took, the wall did its job, and then on the rebound, the second shot, Joe Bendick seems like a nice guy, but I think Andre Blake makes that save in his sleep. So it's kind of frustrating. It's like the one position I think where we really can't afford. It's as great as our front line is with Gazdag, Carranza, and Nura. Not having Andre Blake certainly hurts. So we'll get him back after the Gold Cup and see if we can make a run there. But I guess congratulations to Atlanta. I love Almada. He's a great young player, World Cup winner with Argentina this past December. So good to see him flourishing. I think he might have a future in Europe. I think some teams are going to be calling him up during the transfer window, or maybe at the end of the MLS season. We'll see. But not a great night for the Union. We'll just put it that way, getting shut out.
For sure. Yeah, that, and of course the Phillies are kind of trying to make a run, but in the very competitive National League, it should be very interesting to see. I think they were out like 1 or 2 games out of the wild card spot. It's going to be really down. It's going to go down the stretch. If Phillies get hot, they could really do something because a lot of these teams, because you got Miami, San Francisco, you got the Dodgers, and of course everyone's favorite team, you got the Atlanta Braves. So at least you're not the Cardinals, the Mets, or the Padres. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, with our payroll, we're not that much better, I must say. All those teams, obviously, the Mets and the Padres in particular, their record should be reversed at the very least, with the payrolls that they've got. But the Phillies aren't that far behind in terms of payroll, and you never know with this team. People say with payroll considered, they're one of the worst teams in baseball. They were saying that last year, and then they got hot and went to the World Series. So we'll see what happens. You never know with Philadelphia sports, but I know that they certainly have a hungry group of players wanting to get back after a taste of the World Series last year. So we'll see what happens.
It's going to be interesting. Of course, obviously, not having Rhys Hoskins is not going to help, but it's, they've got a good group of guys, and who knows, they could go get someone at the deadline,
That's true.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it. Ben Schneider, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Casey.